All right, some undercard information for this rumored Saudi show on December 23rd. And there's obviously something going on over there because we're hearing stuff from Eddie Hearn, hearing stuff from Frank Warren, hearing stuff from various members of the boxing press. And also, Eddie Hearn posted a picture of himself and Anthony Joshua with the Prince, who's overseeing Riyadh season out there. So again, there's something going on. Anyway, the undercard is rumored to feature the likes of Arslanbek Makhmudov versus Ajit Kabayel, Frank Sanchez versus Junior Farr, Jarrell Miller versus Daniel Dubois, and Filip Hrgovic taking on a yet unknown opponent. Also, there's the potential for Jay Opetaia to be defending his cruiserweight title and Dimitri Bivol defending his light heavyweight title. Richard Rivera has been touted as a potential opponent for Dimitri Bivol, but no opponent has yet been touted for Jay Opetaia. Now, this undercard alone sounds insane. Never mind Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder fighting further up the bill in a double header. Obviously, it will be AJ against Otto Wallin. That's what we're hearing. Wilder against Joseph Parker. That would be big enough by itself on one card. But to have all these guys on the undercard, absolutely insane. And as I said in a previous video, there is just no way you could put on a card like this. And even if not every fight gets made, not every fight makes it to the bill, even if it's like 2/3, that is still completely impossible without Saudi involvement. It's just that simple. And I'll give you an example of a fight back in the days, or a fighter back in the days, who couldn't be enticed out of his little bubble. Adonis Stevenson, when he signed with PBC, he avoided the Sergey Kovalev fight. He was in his little bubble in Canada, getting whatever it was, 2, 3, 4 million a fight. I don't even think it was that much. Let's just say it's 2, 3 million a fight. And he was comfortable doing that. How much would a Kovalev fighter paid him? 5, 6 million maybe? To him, the risk wasn't worth it for only 5 million. But if the Saudis had been around during that time and said, look, we'll pay you 50 million, fight Kovalev now, do you really think he would have turned it down? At that point, the risk becomes worth the extra reward. And with the Saudis involved, they can get fighters like that, I'm just using an example, who otherwise would just stay in their little comfort zone, their little bubble, and not take any big risks because they're already making steady, decent purses against second and third tier opposition. You can coax them out of their little hiding holes when you've got the kind of money that the Saudis have got and get them to take the fights that we all want to see them in. Now let's talk about this undercard here, the potential undercard for this rumored Saudi show. First of all, Arslanbek Makhmudov against Ajit Kabayel. Both guys are in the top 10, top 15 of at least some of the sanctioning bodies. I would certainly be picking Arslanbek Makhmudov in that one against Ajit Kabayel. I think he'd probably win on points or maybe stop Kabayel, let's say mid-rounds. Then we got Frank Sanchez against Junior Farr. I'd certainly pick Frank Sanchez in that one, probably to beat Junior Farr on points. And perhaps the most interesting of these heavyweight matchups, but controversial at the same time, would be Jarrell Miller against Daniel Dubois. Now, we all know Jarrell Miller, multi-time drug cheat, deplorable human being, we get that. But at the end of the day, are you going to watch Jarrell Miller fight Daniel Dubois if that fight gets made? Because I'm not going to lie to you folks, I'm going to watch it. I want to see what happens. First of all, I'm interested to see how Jarrell Miller performs if he's actually clean, and surely Queensbury and Daniel Dubois' people would be demanding the highest degree of PED testing for that contest. If Jarrell Miller is anything like, let's say he's 70% of what he was on the juice, I'm picking him to beat Daniel Dubois. Maybe I'll be wrong, okay, but I'm picking him to beat Daniel Dubois because Miller has a very, very strong will. He's shown an ability to take a shot, even against Lucas Brown. Lucas Brown, old as dust, well past his best, was never an amazing fighter even at his peak, but still, he can crack. He hit Jarrell Miller bang on the chin, maybe buzzed him a little bit a couple times, but Miller never looked close to going down, never looked close to being in any serious trouble. So Miller, it appears, has got really good whiskers. He's physically a very big human being. He comes forward, he applies the pressure. I think he would take Daniel Dubois into deep waters and drown him. That's what I think personally. Now, maybe Daniel Dubois can keep him on the end of the long punches, the solid jab he's got, the big right hand. I guess that's possible. But I think it's more likely that Jarrell Miller, again, takes him into deep water and drowns him. But I think it's a fascinating fight, very interesting. Again, Miller's a scumbag, we all know that, for cheating on multiple occasions and basically showing no remorse for it. Let's be real, Jarrell Miller has not shown any regret, any remorse, as far as I'm aware, for being a multi-time PED cheat. So there you go. But I'll certainly be watching that fight. I think it's an interesting one. And then you got Filip Hrgović. Well, we don't know who he's going to be fighting yet, if that card takes place. And then J.O. Pataya and Dimitri Bivol. Bivol against Richard Rivera. Rivera, some of you may remember, was the guy that lost a controversial decision to Badou Jack. That was also in Saudi Arabia, I think last year. Calls himself Popeye. He's got this weird, Popeye thing going on where he wears the Popeye get up and all that after the fight. Yeah, Rivera would be moving down because obviously the Badou Jack fight was at cruiserweight. This will be at light heavyweight. I don't think Dimitri Bivol, based on what I saw of Rivera last time out, would have too many issues. Undercard stacked with names. Now, some people, if you want to be critical, would say it may be stacked with names. It's not exactly stacked with 50-50 fights. Well, if we look at the two main fights on this proposed bill, Joshua versus Wallin, as far as I'm concerned, that's a competitive fight. I'd be very surprised if that doesn't turn out to be competitive. Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker, I think that's got the potential to be competitive. It really depends on the will of Joseph Parker. Is he going to turn up to actually really impose himself? And I'm not saying he has to attack Deontay Wilder and be on the front foot, but in the crucial moments when he gets opportunities to punch, is he going to be decisive? But it has the potential to be a competitive fight. So that's the two main fights, the double header. Then the undercard, Ajit Kabayel versus Makhmudov. I think it will be somewhat competitive. I do strongly favor Makhmudov to win, but Ajit Kabayel is still unbeaten. He's a mover. Maybe he can cause Makhmudov some issues with that movement for a few rounds. So I think it will be an interesting little cat and mouse game for as long as it lasts. And maybe Ajit Kabayel can surprise us. He does have that win over Derek Chisora, albeit many, many years ago. What was that, 5-6 years ago? And since then, Ajit Kabayel has been the European heavyweight champion. Since that is incredible, isn't it? Since the Chisora fight, which just goes to show how awful the competition has been for that EBU belt at heavyweight. Absolutely terrible. If you go look at Ajit Kabayel's record and the guys he's fought since the Chisora fight, it is absolutely awful. But because he's still EBU champion, that's why he's retained a top 15 ranking. Because with some of the sanctioning bodies, if you are EBU champion, you get ranked in the top 15 automatically, just off the strength of having that belt. You don't need to be fighting great competition. You don't even need to be fighting competition that are in the top 15 to maintain the top 15 ranking if you've got the EBU belt. It's been that way for a long time. If Kabayel didn't have that belt and he was fighting the opponents he's been fighting, he probably wouldn't be ranked in the top 15 at this point. Because as I say, the Chisora fight was a very, very long time ago. You're not going to dine off that win for 5-6 years unless you build on it. You're not going to maintain a ranking without that EBU belt, having beaten Chisora 5-6 years ago, if you're fighting the kind of people that Kabayel's fought over the past, as I say, 5-6 years. Anyway, so Kabayel against Makhmudov, I favor Makhmudov. Sanchez versus Junior Farr. To me, that's kind of a bit of an easy fight for Sanchez. Could be wrong, but I don't really rate Junior Farr. I don't think he's that impressive. He's a fairly big guy, but I think Sanchez is going to be too quick for him, too smart, and I think he should take that probably on points. Quite a wide decision, I would imagine. Junior Farr's got some speed to him as well. He can box a little bit. He is experienced, but yeah, I'd have to go with Frank Sanchez there quite heavily. And when I say he is experienced, I think he's actually got a similar number of fights to Frank Sanchez as a pro, maybe one less, but he was obviously experienced as an amateur, as is Frank Sanchez. But yeah, I go with Frank Sanchez quite heavily. Miller against Dubois, I've already spoken about. I think that's a fascinating fight. So there you go. The undercard for this rumored Saudi show on December 23rd. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. And before I go, I want to give a shout out to all the new subscribers to my Patreon page. I cover loads of different topics in my weekly podcast, as you can see on screen right now, from current events to deep dives down the rabbit hole and everything in between. I'm really enjoying the feedback and the discussions we've been having on there lately. So if you'd like to join the conversation, just click the link in the description box below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.